Right. Village of Legislation Committee will be meeting Monday, September 9th, beginning at 6 o'clock. This meeting is open to the public and will be held at the municipal building located at 20399 West Main Street, Lanham, Wisconsin. Called to order by presiding officers.
Yeah.
Alan Fullarobi, Newman,
Here.
and Lake. Here. Citizen comment.
Oh, no citizens present
today.
Let the record show that all the citizens are happy.
Consider and provide a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. A proposal amendment to the current ordinance section 18-136 and 18-140, establishing a limited crushing permit, LCP, and possibly an enactment of the proposal amendment.
Well, no, Victor.
I drafted this in response to a request that had been made by business here in the village. In examining it carefully, it appeared to me that the current rock crushing ordinance was really crafted to deal with crushing within a quarry site. And historically, we've not had anything that allowed non-quarry crushing to occur. So as a result, I defined in more detail what a rock crusher is and the scope of things that could be crushed. Basically eliminating what I would call demolition waste from that process and allowing the crushing of hard materials, stone, concrete that would remain from a demolition of a building. And in the process, I came up with what I call the limited crushing permit, LCP, that had to be applied for to reconstitute, as I put it, rock, stone, brick, block, and concrete waste, and eliminating other construction-related materials, which you will see in lines 55 through 61. And then there were conditions for the issuance of the limited crushing permit that it could only be issued by the village board, which in looking at lines 64 through 68, which had the sole discretion to pursue the recommendation if it wanted to of the plan commission, and could pursue the holding of public hearing after determining which properties could be impacted by the operation of a rock crusher in its vicinity. And the permit would be something that would be issued for a limited period of time, not be an ongoing proposition. And that's indicated in line 70, that the term for the issuance of this could be up to 60 days. And that it would be subject to the non-quarrying provisions of section 18-139, which I provided there in a footnote, and 18-142 sub 2, which regard to the hours of operation. And that there would be a fee, a permit fee, at the time of application, regardless of the length of term, which you find on line 75, and it can only be renewed for a maximum of 2 terms in any calendar year, so that this would not be an ongoing business operation, if you will. And that this would constitute a special zoning permission with regards to the use of the rock crusher. And in the event of a violation, because potentially this is difficult to manage on lines 83 through 89, I provide an increased penalty for violations of this particular section of initially $1,000 for the first violation, and each succeeding violation increased to double the amount which was imposed for the immediate prior violation, so that anyone engaging in this activity doesn't look at a penalty as a cost of doing business. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Hector, I would recommend that in section lines 14 through 18, we also add asphalt.
I'm sorry, what line?
Lines number 14 through 18 discusses what is and is not allowed.
Oh, sure,
I think we should put asphalt in there
sure.
as well,
As not allowed.
as being allowed.
Oh,
It'd
So
be a lot.
So it would be rock, stone, brick, block, concrete, asphalt, or related debris. But excluding anything else.
Okay,
okay, my comments?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I see absolutely no need for this ordinance, it shouldn't be considered at all. We don't have any problems in the village that this would solve. I will disagree where you say it can only be done in the quarries. If you read the ordinance, it can be done on a development site, crushing the
That's right.
material from utilities.
that's
So-
true.
So it
Yeah.
allows that.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. Except, however, if we're going to continue with this farce, I do have some comments also. I don't know that I would allow asphalt because you end up with contaminants from the oil and the soil. And what is going to be done with this material when it's crushed? If we go line by line, on line 14, related debris. I don't really know. I've spent some time as an expert witness in construction litigation. I don't know what related debris is. I think that should be not allowed. Yeah, and or what is related debris? I know it's a good legal term. It's a kind of catch-all on things, but in this case, but that would be my comment there. On line 15, I would perhaps highlight excluding or make it another paragraph. Because when I first looked at this, I didn't catch the excluding and I thought, oh my God, we're gonna turn into a dump site here. So I think we really need to make it clear that none of this material is allowed. Because this would be, if you dealt with a building demolition, a lot of this would be in there and it's really not allowed. It has to go to a landfill. Then if we would jump ahead to line 57. I totally disagree with a non-owner. I believe that in all cases, the permit should be by the property owner. Because I've been involved in a few of these where it turns bad and the person doing the work disappears. And you can't find them, you can't sue them, you can't do anything. However, we have the old saying in the business that the property can't leave town. And I really believe that the owner of the property is responsible for this, especially if it turns bad. And then on line 58, again, the exclusion. I would again make the exclusion much more clear. Because these are certainly not the materials we want to have disposed of in town. Then on, when we get down to, let's say line 73, I would add a new line, item 4. And say, shall only crush materials extracted in the village of Lannon. No importing of materials for processing. So if we would have a large concrete building in town, concrete block or whatever, and it's going to be destroyed, that material could be crushed with a portable crusher on site. But we can't have truckloads of demolition material coming from Milwaukee and being dumped in Lannon and then being processed in Lannon. I'm concerned about contaminated waste when you import things. There's the ground that comes from gas stations that is full of problems. The EPA is very concerned about, and the DNR, contaminated waste. And if we're gonna allow it to come in from outside the village, we should have a requirement in here that the loads have to be tested by a reputable testing laboratory to ascertain that there's no contamination. When we step down into the 1842 paragraph 2, I don't think we should be starting at 6 in the morning. Most everything in the village goes at 7 in the morning. And I've done work in communities where there's retirement people, and backup alarms at 7 in the morning cause quite a few problems. And in California, I couldn't start before 8 o'clock on a hospital project due to backup alarms. So I fully disagree with 6 AM, and I think minimum should be 7 AM.
Isn't 18-142,
6.
isn't 18,
Not crushing. That's a
Oh,
my
not
knowledge.
crushing, yeah,
No.
their operations.
Yeah, in an enclosed building, but we're talking about a crusher.
I hear noise.
18-142 is an existing ordinance, right?
Right,
Not
correct,
a
right,
proposed change,
right,
so you're suggesting a further change to that.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And, okay, and then, line 75, I was, interested in where the, fee of $6,000 comes from.
Just an arbitrary, grab it out of the air.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
What is our current, rock crushing, permit? It's like 1,500, I think, right?
10,000 for the quarries.
Yeah, and that would be blasting for the quarries, but the temporary crushing that we issued for Lucky and then in Stone the last couple months ago was $500. They were doing an easy, whatever.
I know it was much less.
So I definitely would agree with the $6,000 because that defers some of the attorney fees and things that we might be involved in and inspection fees and such. And then on line 78, I would not go for two terms. I say 1 term in any calendar year. Especially if we're looking at 60 days. 2 terms is 120 days. That's a large part of a year.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think we'll give it 1. And that's all I had. So I would bring up, while we're on kind of what's causing all this, is if we look at the foundry property. And we look at our ordinances and we look at 14-40. That material that's piled up there is not allowed to be in the village for more than 10 days. And I believe it's been there for 2 years. So if we would take our normal $100 a day and 30,000 a year, and that's 60 grand. If we will knock it down to 1 year, it's 30 grand. But then also there's a container there or a bunker full of asphalt shingles. which could be asbestos, it would have to be tested. But they've been there at least a year and probably 2 years, so there could be another $30,000. I think, that property has just been a nightmare forever. And, the owner of the property doesn't wanna do anything or conform to anything with us, and, the renter has, blatantly not considered the village of Lannon. To the degree that when he first came in there 3 years ago, he regraded the property without a grading permit, without silt fences, and he's next to a impacted waterway. If we come a full circle to where he wants to fill in the property, I think you're gonna have to do a stormwater study, and you might need detention ponds, because it drains to a creek to the west. And if you're gonna have surface drainage of crushed material, that's particulate, and the DNR is against particulate. That's why we have to sweep our city streets, so we don't put particulate into the storm sewers and affect fish. I was told that by a DNR agent many years ago. So, that's all I got.
All right, well. We have big issues and we have small issues. We have minutia issues, and then we have the overarching opinion of Mr. Newman that it is a farce. So should we address maybe the specific reasons why we are having this legislative committee meeting? The specific circumstance that we find ourselves in prior to Mr. Newman joining the village board. HM Brandt was told that they needed to put some fill on their lot, and they were told that they would be able to use their own equipment to crush their own debris to resurface their lot. And everybody agreed to that, and then when Mr. Newman came, he made us aware of the
Village
fact-
ordinances that you weren't
Right.
aware of.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, but that still leaves us in a very political position.
Well, you can say you were wrong. I mean, I've had to do that at times. There was no guarantee. I will say that I noticed in the minutes that you said if he could get a permit. Fact of the matter is, he can't get a permit. So you left yourself an out there also.
You're referring to the special use
Permit that one,
permit that we gave him for the property with that provision included in it,
It doesn't belong there.
or you mean if he could get a crushing permit?
Correct. Which you can't. So I feel you don't really owe him anything. He has a duty to read the ordinances too.
One thing I think that needs to be considered also.
Don, you're not a member.
Can I comment though?
Citizens comment if you sat down in front, but that passed. So it works.
Go ahead.
I would like to see,
Comment at the board meeting.
I would like to have a discussion about the, I don't disagree with you, Mr. Newman, but I would like to kind of look at the overarching harms that would come from this proposed legislation, if there is specific harms to the village that we need to consider, and what are the possible benefits. I'd like to kind of use a common sense approach to it to see if there is some sort of middle ground that we could find that's not detrimental to the village nor to the subject. You know, there are other issues as to the location of the crushing permit and, you know, things like that, which I feel that that Mr. Brandt shouldn't expect special dispensation for. However, in light of the fact that he bought that property and he was told what he needed to do to have his plan of operation and his conditional use and blah, blah, blah. I feel like we owe him at least the effort to find something that's not detrimental to the village and yet satisfies his need.
You understand that you are creating an ordinance that can go on in the future. And you can have other people coming in and wanting to do this.
Mhm.
Also, we have issues of distance. In the quarries, they have to be 500 feet from the property line. Uh, residential property lines. In this case, if we talk about the foundry, he's gonna be, within 100 feet. I don't think that's wise.
Well, and he's proposing crushing here.
No. at the
No,
foundry.
he's back at the foundry now.
Oh, certainly, always has been. He's been processing the material even right now with a hydraulic crusher on an excavator. So he's already technically doing it. It has been for about 6 months.
So I would be. So I appreciate the concerns that you bring up, Jerry, and I appreciate the background. I also kind of agree with Miss Lake and, you know, I had mutual interest, which is why I prompted this conversation with Hector and to look into this was, you know, is there some resolution where we can protect the village and deal with these special circumstances? So I am curious though, what you brought up the DNR items, very valid, and it's not up to us about getting around those requirements. Those are managed and governed by them.
Yeah.
But what do you see as this? Is the negative, or what's your perceived negative impact to the village, other than possibly setting that precedent or opening that door for future activities that might fall within the scope of this that are perceived to be more detrimental?
I agree, that's number one, and I would say, what is the benefit to the village of doing this? There's no benefit at all.
$6,000.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it eliminates a mess that's been a problem
That's
for
what I
2
look
years.
at, the mess. He can clean up the mess, and somebody else wants to clean up their mess, they come to us and we talk about it.
We had problems with the dust, where Jack Moss is now with the topsoil company.
I heard that, so.
Yeah, we ended up running them out of town. Wasn't good, you know, and that particular owner told us where to go, was a warm spot. And, the best part about it is the, mother, used to, give a signal to, at that time Lieutenant Porter, every time he drove by, that he was number one in their book. So we dealt with that for about 6 months till we ran them off.
And you don't consider that a negative? Because I consider that a negative. I kind of feel like we're here to serve the community as well as protect it. And that's why I want to look at the protection and the service. I don't want to say that our job is to run off businesses that have invested in real estate here.
But violating our ordinances and disturbing the residents and causing, quite a problem.
Yeah, we certainly, I think first and foremost have an obligation to the residents,
The
right?
residents,
And
correct?
protecting the health and welfare of the community as a whole.
Yeah,
But I think business owners are granted they're not the same as a resident, but they have invested in our community. They're oftentimes financial partners or contributors to the community in other ways. Not all of them,
we don't get tax money.
not all of them. I'm just saying some.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no property tax anymore, so I'm well aware of your position on those, and I'm not saying I don't disagree with you. However, we also don't want to be that anti-business land. I don't know that that's good for Landon either. You know, at some point, all of these residents are going to want services and products and dining and things like that, and if we take a anti-business stance, I don't know that that serves the community well either. So I think this is an effort to try to
Well, all I'll say in that regard is we're not anti-business. In fact, when we did our 2030 plan, smart growth plan that was required by the state, and we had about 4 months of meetings to determine it. And I led that discussion. We are so limited in land in Lannon that we took the opinion that we are really a residential community and really want to concentrate on residences because we don't have the type of property for businesses other than service businesses. And of course, we're not against service businesses, but we were against heavy industry because we just didn't have the land for heavy industry. And we did that in 2006, so that's not anything new.
Yeah, but I'll also point out that those plans get redone every, what, 20 years?
Yeah.
So, and if
But our
they
land-
assume that things were going to be the same into perpetuity, there wouldn't be a requirement or a need to update them every 20 years.
But our amount of land that we have isn't changing.
That's true.
We just don't have it. And tax wise, we're much better off securing property taxes from residential apartments, even small businesses to an extent than a big factory, because we just don't get any money from it.
I think if you want to run them out of town.
No, I just don't
That's
want,
what
I
it
don't,
says.
I don't want them to break our ordinances.
Yeah, but it sounds like you want to run them out of town to get more property, so we can
Well,
put
he's-
homes there.
Yeah, he's not zoned residential, and he's not going to be zoned residential, it's not gonna turn into a residential district because we don't allow him to crush. I think I just would like to lobby on behalf of the common sense of, this guy literally wants legally 60 days. He told us that he would be done in a week. And I struggle with Jerry's stance because he is technically right. But I would love to see that we take the approach of trying to find a compromise that makes all parties happy. I think if he's willing to pay $6,000 for 60 days of getting rid of the material that otherwise he would have to load up and truck over our road surfaces to get out of here anyway, we should try to find a way to do that. I'm not disagreeing that Jerry's right. I'm looking for the overarching desire to work in a positive direction rather than saying we've never done it that way before.
I agree with, some of the points Jerry made, though. I feel like one term is adequate.
Yep.
Rather than two, especially if we're gonna consider a 60-day term. I'd almost be more in favor of 2 shorter periods of time. If they wanna pay the fee twice, knock yourself out.
Or 30 days. 2 terms, 30 days each.
Right, one or the other, I'd probably lean in favor of 2 30-day terms. It seems like a more manageable term in terms of monitoring and
Just to see if it gets under control.
right. Yeah, but a 30-day period is a little more manageable. We just tell the chief, hey, they've got this permit for 30 days. Make sure somebody's running by there every so often and things are.
How are you going to require the 2 permits for the 2 properties? And are you going to have Foundry take care of the one on their property?
Well, so that's the one item you brought up is the property owner. I know that there are some of the quarries perform crushing activities on property for other quarries. We allow that.
It's rock crushing in our ordinance.
Yeah.
It's extracted material. It's not imported.
But again, we allow it to happen on someone else's property.
Yeah. Absolutely. But they own a current crushing. Right, properties where it's taking place.
I guess my point is you can make the same argument here.
I agree with that.
Those are my thoughts.
Jerry, would you, kindly go over those DNR requirements again that you brought up? I want to, have a better understanding of silt felt fencing and drainage plans.
Well, there's no particulate allowed in runoff. It has to be retained. That's why you'd have the detention ponds. So that's number one. That's why you have to put up silt fence during construction
Mhm.
until you get your ponds created or your runoff designed. The other one is contaminated soil. That falls into when you're importing something into the village.
I do like that provision, that you mentioned about, I think it's reasonable. To expect. Some type of monitoring, inspection, testing of materials that get brought into the village from outside the village. We don't want to be the, Northwest Milwaukee dumping grounds, right?
Right.
And this ordinance change is for a limited crushing permit, meaning that every time this ordinance would be sought out, there would have to be a hearing. The village board would have to approve it, and we could make that conditioned. Right? Is that correct? I mean, once.
So it's optional, but yeah, it would be up to first the village board, it would go to the village board, then the village board would decide if they want to have the planning commission review it and approve it. If they wanted to add a public notice stipulation to it.
Right, my point is nobody's gonna walk in and say to Brenda, I need a limited crushing permit without us being aware of it and.
Correct.
Well, she can't issue it.
Right.
Or it's
Board
approved
has to.
before she can issue it.
So assuming that you don't approve of this, do you think do you think that we, in our discussions here, have addressed the primary concerns?
All right, well, would you like me to make a motion, incorporating some of these, this items of discussion so that we can have further discussion?
You're the chair. and-
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go based on my notes here. I would like to make a motion. We don't have, oh yeah, amendment. Okay, I'd like to make a motion for the ordinance amending section 18-136 and 18-140 of the Village of Lannon Code of Ordinances, establishing a limited crushing permit with the following proposed changes and contingent upon final review before adoption. On lines 14 through 18. I would like to add asphalt to that list and add in, that material, if brought from off that site, needs to be tested prior to crushing. As an aside, I think that rock crushers have a very specific, items that they're able to crush and other things just, break them. So maybe we can seek guidance on what materials rock crushers are designed to crush and make sure that we don't go outside of that. And then I would like to see if we can amend section 18-142 to include a start time of 7 AM instead of 6 AM, which is the current approved ordinance time. I would also like to suggest that line number 70 be amended to say it may not be issued for a term whose duration is greater than 30 consecutive days. And line 72 and 73. Oh wait, I'm sorry, and, oh, let me amend that. It may not be issued for a term whose duration is greater than 30 days and not more than 2 terms in any calendar year. So that would be the effect of 2 30-day permits would be all that would be approved for any application. I think that will conclude my, motion. Discussion?
Need a second first.
Can I second it?
You need a second.
Okay. Second. Any discussion?
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, I would,
All right.
I would also add, or suggest that we include some of the other, items that Jerry mentioned. I would agree with him when that related debris is too ambiguous. I would either further define that or frankly just strike it.
I recommend striking.
I would also, ask that you consider his recommendation to specifically call out exclusions so that it's more clearly communicated in the ordinance. And that would be in sections 14 through 18, as well as section C, which is lines 55 through 61.
How about non-owner?
Oh, yeah.
Where was that at?
That is in lines 55 through 61. Specifically line 57.
Yeah.
Operate a rock crusher by non-owner of a specific property.
I think we've already set a precedent for that as my position. That we allow it. I don't know that we can allow it for certain instances, but not others, right? It seems selective in nature.
Well, this is for a limited crushing permit. A crushing permit.
I mean. Maybe limited crushing permit isn't I mean, we have, our other crushing permits are limited as well, right? There's a term assigned.
I should do the $10,000 blasting.
And that's a year-long renewal that's non. You could consider adding, written consent.
Well, Hector's got to chase somebody. And have the ability to do it.
Right.
Or somebody that's in Florida. That would be really expensive.
You have a recommendation for that, Hector, off the top of your head on how you?
It is a problem. Tracking down. Absentee owners. I've got a situation right now, which is a matter of public record, where we basically got a judgment in the neighborhood of $250,000. And the owner can't be bound, and the property has other liens against it already. And so the dilemma that the community has is to force the foreclosure, but bid enough for the property such that others get paid before it can take title to the property. And the community has decided to stop and think about it further, and has been thinking The community's been thinking for about a half a year now. And the owner has not done anything to improve the property. So it is a very thorny problem.
And that's why the old statement is the property can't leave town. You gotta go after the property.
So is there a mechanism where you can attach or enforce some sort of a personal guarantee associated with the receipt of this proposed permit? Such that you circumvent the property owner, and focus on the actor, if you will?
Well, it comes down to what you mean by a personal guarantee. You can have a letter of credit posted.
Yep.
But then what are the terms of releasing the letter of credit? Do you test the property beforehand and do you test the property after the fact? And if the property somehow is contaminated in a way that you need substantial remediation from the standpoint of collecting the soil and relocating the soil in a treated landfill.
Yeah.
I've got a situation in another community where the community is trying to daylight a creek from 1950 for which there was no permit. And the problem is that the parking lot above the creek, which has been encapsulated in concrete, is now falling in. And the walls of the creek are falling in, so the village is using eminent domain to acquire the land from the railroad,
Oh, boy.
which is
Oh.
contaminated. And the cost of treating that contaminated soil was in the neighborhood of $1.2 million. This is an $8.5 million project, so you're talking big numbers when it comes to contamination. The reason why that community chose eminent domain is that under Wisconsin law, if a municipality condemns contaminated property, they don't have to remediate it so long as it can be contained in a way, encapsulation or
Yeah.
something of that
Yeah,
sort.
yeah,
So,
brownfield.
Well, thinking about this specific situation, I know that we have to think generally when we're creating legislation, but on the specific thing, we could also put in chain of what is it called, chain of custody. I mean, because the specific issue that we're talking about is debris from a known job site, which I think probably had its own set of testing done to it prior to. Yeah, so you would have to do testing on site or chain of custody, proof of chain of custody.
possibly,
It's very,
you know,
Trying
what
to
you
think of
test
every-
for
Yeah.
arsenic, for
yeah,
example, the case that I mentioned with regard to the railroad, there is arsenic.
Oh, yeah.
But arsenic is also a naturally appearing element.
Depends on the concentration.
Yeah. So. See, the commercial problem that arises is that as there is more and more development taking place in Waukesha County, there are fewer and fewer places that can accommodate disposal or processing areas. And this village, this is just my personal opinion, has made significant strides towards the projected comprehensive plan that was outlined some years ago, as evidenced by the residential community. And at some point, you reach a critical mass of residences where there really is a conflict with certain kinds of business. The community can be pro-business while at the same time being selective as to the kind of businesses that it will tolerate. Unless the community is dependent on the business. Speaking as someone who grew up in a mill town, Gary, Indiana. Well, we had conditions that were obnoxious, threat to health and so forth, but if the mills were gone, the jobs
Right.
disappeared, and that's what has happened in that general area.
Mhm. And in Lannon, we are known for our quarries, and so a rock crushing permit to me is not a big stretch. You know, or a modification or a limited situation is not a big stretch for this community. You know, when I hear blasting, I say that is part of being in Lannon.
I get the tax.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
They were here first.
yeah.
We're here because of them, right?
Yeah. Grandfather for sure.
So in general, I would just like to see us do something in order to create a limited short-term rock crushing that isn't detrimental to the village and is still supportive of the businesses that need to use that, and I think we need some more drafting though. You know, we've just added a whole lot of language to this. I don't think anything can be adopted as it lays here right now. Correct? Council?
Well, it will be difficult for the entire board to comprehend the changes. One of the reasons why I sent this out in advance was to give the members of the legislative committee the opportunity to digest and think about what was being done here. It would be cleaner if you gave me an opportunity to incorporate what I think you have included in the motion,
Right.
but I would need at least until tomorrow.
Oh, of course, yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
So it sounds to me like probably with a motion and a second, with some possible consideration for amendments based on the additional comments, maybe they make it the recommendation to, well, maybe they change the recommendation then to just have a revised draft prepared and reviewed by that committee again, or?
By the board. I think you have enough board members here who have witnessed the discussion to get some background on this matter. And you have it on the agenda for the board. You can talk about the larger philosophical differences that exist. On the one hand, it's been argued that this kind of modification does not yield more benefits than drawbacks. On the other hand, it's viewed as a means of dealing with some isolated situations. Given the fee to be charged, this is not going to be a regular activity within the village, and intended to clean up at least one property.
So we have
Motion on the table.
motion and a second on the table, so I think you can just call your vote, Hannah. Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed. No.
So two.
Yep, it carries.
All right. Well, it needs more work, that's for sure, but
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thanks, Jerry.
seconded.
Favor.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have to get you a gavel now.
We rolling right into,
Oh, good.
Sure.
Yep. All right, Terry, we can roll right into yours. Yeah.
Pay the bills.
Ready?
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee on Monday, September 9th at 6:46. No, 6:51 PM. Roll call, Brenier's here. Newman,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Yates,
Here.
all are here. Brenda,
Yes. I'm just meant this time. It is an early meeting, so a lot of bills haven't. There is the interest payments for contract service that are on there. Those are due October of every year, for our, bonds. Everything else seems pretty typical. We have the drinking fountain, installed and went through, our funds that has been installed, that goes there, as well as the painting, of the building. There are still some other, improvements that are being done, but painting is finished. Other than that, I mean, it's a bit more.
is the new drinking fountain for the municipal building?
Yes.
Is this Midwest meter, is that for the land and estates well meter?
It was for, Wall meter.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they are working on the land and estates one, the end of this week or early next week.
You could let me know when that gets online, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so.
Just out of curiosity, how much longer do we have with GFL for the contract?
I believe that ends next year, the end of next
Next year?
We have a review in December though of this year.
Yeah, for you.
Okay.
Did we get any reasoning why that collection was missed again at the park?
year. No,
I have an issue to discuss with them too.
Lindsay, did you follow?
Well, with GFL. I've had some people question about what's permitted or not permitted for the. A couple of the large bulk items and the yard waste. And I talked to Brenda and she didn't have anything, so went to GFL's website. They have not.
Nothing.
So with John's, we did a 8.5 by 11 sheet to sort it all out. So I think we need to get that from GFL. And I plan on talking to them for that.
The only thing I can say about GFL is I did catch them this last time where, as they put, the arm came up with the garbage can, stuff came out, and the gentleman got out of the truck and picked it up and threw it in.
That's good.
So I thought that, well, I caught it this time, and so I thought that was kind of.
It's gonna depend on the driver.
Huh?
It's
Yes,
gonna
it
depend
does.
on the driver.
Exactly.
yeah, because there's been times I'm gonna go drop my mom, I have a division this last time. Oh, surprise.
I was just curious when that expires. I know it's
Oh,
gotta
well,
be coming up.
garbage bag, and I pick it all up.
Is he hands or heavy?
Well, I'll make a motion that we pay the bills as presented by the clerk, or recommend paying the bills as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. Anybody, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Time to spare. You did good, you got time to spare.
You need a crack.
Is there anybody else? Any visitors? Kelly logs in and sometimes, let's face the nerd that lives in Whispering Ridge, oh God.
There's usually about 4.
I don't know.
Hey, what's going on?
No, I'm asking you what the hell's going on.
Oh, just a minute. I don't feel like being here. But, no matter.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Village Board of Lannon meeting to order for Monday, September 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to order. Please remove your headgear if you're wearing any. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a reminder, if you have not already silenced your cell phones, please do so. Item number 3, roll call, Lake,
Here.
Calatola Roby,
Here.
Newman,
Here,
Moore,
Here.
Grenier,
Here.
Summers, and Yates is present. All present. And accounted for. Item 4, statement of public notice.
That's been posted.
Thank you. Item 5, discussion of possible action on reading correction and approval of the minutes from the 8/12/24 village board meeting.
The only thing I noticed is item number 10. Where it says operator's license. Since this will be posted online, do you think that we can say which company it was? Or McDougall?
no,
Yes, it was.
From last month's meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the servers, training.
From it. Dugout.
Mhm. I just think we need to be, just mention who it is. Good call.
Well, technically, they work at any place in the village. So it's not their license, their bartender's licenses aren't specific to a certain place. I mean, we ask for that information, but they can work at home.
Okay,
Did we have any other comments regarding the minutes, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the 8/12/24 village board meeting. And seconded.
We have a motion, a second, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, discussion of possible action on the reading correction and approval of the minutes from the 8/26/24 special village board meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
And seconded.
We have a motion, a second, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports, finance personnel,
We will cover number 17.
thank you. Legislative, just mentioned that it's later in the agenda.
Later in the agenda.
Your mic then.
It'll be later in the agenda.
Thank you. Parks, Recs and beautification.
We have, the first phase of the village hall update done. If you'll notice that, the painting was done and the doors were done. Don't worry about the front here. I know Patrick said, oh my gosh, the front doesn't look very good, but that's all gonna get wrapped in, maintenance-free aluminum, so that will be free, and then we're gonna put some puck lights, shining on the building, so, that will still happen this fall. I don't have an exact date yet. We are working on getting some other things done because the ARPA funds do need to be fully committed. If not, they don't have to be paid out, but I need to have all of the ARPA funds under contract. So there's going to be some things at the pavilion, at the park, at the dugout, at the park, and a few additional things around this building. But I think I'll probably call a meeting so that if anybody in the citizenship wants to weigh in on things that need to be done, we can do that prior to the end of this year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Colleen. I'll also point out that we do now have a functional water spigot, fountain, bottle filler, whatever you, bubbler.
Bubbler.
Folks
Bubbler.
around Wisconsinites call
I
it.
think you're required to call it a bubbler in the state of Wisconsin.
No, I was born in Kenosha, it's a drinking fountain.
Public safety, thank you. Public works, recycling, sewer.
Well, we've had quite a bit of action. The lift pumps at the Custer station have been fully tested. Are they accepted then?
I didn't review the final documentation yet, but we had the final performance test, which was part of, we did the interim performance test. When the station was partially complete, we came back and did the final performance test on Wednesday.
We're also working on the SCADA redoing and the well house renew. That's moving along and gonna be going to bid quite shortly.
Probably in 3 weeks.
We're working at seal coating and striping the parking lots. We're gonna do Village Hall and Lions. We're gonna do a little bit of repair work at Lions. But we're not gonna do anything at Jake's this year. But for a budget idea, we were talking about, we have other needs besides public safety. To redo the parking lot at Jake's, we've got a conceptual price right now of $100,000. That is a tear out, complete repair and do it right. So I just wanted to get that on. We have snow plow in to get the transmission fixed. And we're planning on awarding the snow plowing contract tonight. One item of that is the private drives. We have one at Whispering Ridge and Overstone. We need to decide if we're going to maintain those or not. My suggestion would be to do a quick claim deal for Whispering Ridge and give them it back. And I was hoping that we hadn't dedicated Overstone, but I find out from Ben that we have. And, we need to discuss if we're gonna plow that, and if we're gonna maintain that in the future. So that's another subject. We are continuing to work on tree and right of way cleanup removal. We've actually had Waukesha County do some for us. Sign replacements, we're getting together a list and gonna do some sign replacement. And then Bonnie Lane, we've had some residents complain about Bonnie Lane. A new fellow who doesn't understand that this has been going on for 30 years. It's in pretty bad shape, but it's due to being built on topsoil. Every winter it goes up and comes back down and breaks up more. I looked at it with a paving contractor to see what we could do. We are gonna wait till spring, go through another snow plowing season and frost heave season, and then see what we do next year. We are replacing a culvert on Davies Drive. That's all I got.
Thank you, Jerry. Corey,
Nothing new at this time.
thank you, Don. Department reports, clerk's office.
Budget meetings will be scheduled soon, hoping to have one by the end of this month, and then there'll be another one in October. We'll probably have some more than that, but we'll see how everything goes. Finishing up financials and getting things ready for the budget. The election cycle has started for us, and so we're being inundated with voter registrations and absentee ballot requests, so don't wait till the last minute, get those in if you know new people moving in and whatnot, so we can get those done, but our office is getting very busy as we're also getting ready for another round of utility billing at the beginning of October and tax bill projects, so.
Great, thank you, Brenda. Police department,
Monthly activity report is online. Aside from that, we'll report.
you guys have been busy.
Yeah.
Thank you, chief. Item 9. Citizen comments. This is meant for public comments on any subject without any discussion by board of trustee members or action except for possible referral to a governmental body or village agent. So again, you can make your comments, you can ask questions all you want. We aren't really going to be able to answer questions or engage in any direct back and forth. So, Brenda, did you have, or?
There is anything.
Nobody signed up. Did we have any citizen comments? I know you, Brian, you were interested. I haven't. Go ahead, Brian.
This is Brian Swearingen. I live in Overstone, but concerning 20481 West Main Street, Blessed Salon. And I guess the reason I'm here, actually, I got two things, but the first one, the main thing is Landon is suing my wife's salon for not hooking up to the water in time at a proper time. I don't wanna beat a dead horse, we were totally against it, and we were late to hook up. We did finally hook up. I guess the main reason I don't know if anybody, I know you're not gonna answer, is we share a well with our neighbors, Kelly and Chris. And, their main thing was their child, I think it was, chlorine and fluoride is added to the water. And, some with his health, he cannot have that, cannot have that. Well, we shared the same well. So when it all started, we had our well tested, everything was fine. We were late. I'm just here asking for leniency. I know we're being sued by the village and we did hook up in time. We did not hook up in time. I know he lost a bunch of hair, so I owe Tom probably, a couple of cocktails. I'm coming over and, my wife was dead against it, but, like I said, we were waited and waited. I think there was kind of a lack of communicate, well, with the neighbors, and now I find out they're not providing the documentation to the village. So when we did hook up, soon after that, I know an inspector came in our basement, checked out everything. Kelly and Chris, well comes into my basement, there's a lateral going over to their property. And, he checked that out, and we were 100% hooked up. I guess the only thing, like I said, is, we got something in the mail from you guys, and I know my wife filled it out, and kind of just explaining the same thing. Hey, the neighbors, we thought, hey, we have one well, if our well is fine, and maybe you would let us keep the well. Well, there's still no documentation, and so she wrote that out, she filled it out, she sent it to the village, and we didn't get anything back, I don't believe. Actually, after that, then we got the letter saying we were served by the chief. So, we were late, 100%. We're just asking for a little bit of leniency on that fine. You can talk about it in the near future, and let us know what your decision is. Would be greatly appreciated.
We do have this item on for a closed session.
Okay.
Item later tonight.
Can I stop? Can I start one new topic real quick?
Sure.
Same address. And I see on here with the snow patrol, winter after winter after winter, since we've been here about 20 years now, I think in 05, almost 20. I know Winters was the president when we came on board here in the village. Plowing, the Main Street is terrible, to be honest. I took pictures at times, so I got into it with Waukesha County. And now it's not their, Waukesha County comes in, so I would call them up, like, what, come on, you're gonna cause an accident. People are parking too close to the lane. And Waukesha County told me, I think they call it fog line to fog line, white line to white line. The shoulder, Waukesha County is not responsible for it. That's what Waukesha County told me last winter. Actually, it was 2 winters ago. Last winter was very mild, thank goodness. So then they said it's up to the village. So I think actually it probably was Good X or something. But there's still kind of a lack of communication. Who plows up to the curb line? That's why I just want to bring to your attention. It sounds like you're gonna be talking to somebody, but it's just for the safety of the public, especially at our salon. I mean, there's a couple days, probably 2 to 3 days, that it's pretty busy there. And there's, not just older, anybody getting out and their car door opens up into that lane, if sometimes there's 3 feet of snow to the curb line. Those cars are way too far out, I try, I'll take my snowblower and do it sometimes, but it's heavy, but if you could, talk about that in the future, it'd be greatly appreciated, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other citizen comments?
I have one, just a reminder, Patrick, Saturday is the lot for open healing. I know personally that walk has helped a handful of people. Just to bring out a little bit more awareness about it, our community has lost 2 business owners to suicide and 5 children to fentanyl overdoses in the last several years. And this is kind of an important thing. So if you can spread the word, come down. I know Patrick has been there every year, the leader group. Something that's necessary for the mental health of our community. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, John. And we should put out a civic alert tomorrow. Make sure everybody knows. I have a written Citizen comment provided by Commissioner Grimm from the Planning Commission, regarding an item on the agenda tonight. Yeah, item 14, he's asked that I read into the, record about, his concerns. His first question is, what is to be crushed? This is concerning a possible legislative change to our ordinance regarding, creating a possible limited crushing permit. He said there's a couple issues that need to be addressed. Ordinance 18-142 hours of operation for crushing in the quarries are 6 AM to 5 PM and Saturday 6 to 2. This operation is outside of the quarry district, and so hours should be restricted to 8 to 3, Monday through Friday only. Crushing is currently allowed in the quarry district, and so you would have change what zoning district in chapter 78 for this. This question. Chapter 30, environmental, talks about dust and hazards. He asks if we've considered some specific DNR regulations that he cites in here, specifically contained in NR 500. DNR talks about construction debris specifically. He did attach a fact sheet, WA 605, from the Wisconsin DNR. Said be mindful of crushing and spreading hazardous materials. Is there a document for every load that is or has been brought into the village? Should the village consider a permit for material brought into the village? Once this permit is established, will this become a routine practice? Has a site plan been filed with the village and village engineers for grade adjustments? Ordinances 18-140 talks about a plan of operation. How can a plan of operation be approved on unauthorized dumping activity on unapproved plan of operation or another company's land? This item should be vetted carefully to approve a legal action for an illegal activity. I don't feel land should allow this activity. 2, the Plan Commission approved stockpile of reclaimed asphalt to be spread on the property located at 20151 West Main Street, Landon, across from Landon Tank Corp. By the BP. This was a one-time a year ago approximately. Construction concrete is not allowed because of dust and environmental concerns. That concludes Mr. Grimm's comments. I'll ask one last time here, going once, going twice. Any other citizen comments? So. Oh,
I'd like to comment on the crushing. And what Mr. Grimm had to say about the asphalt, yes, I do agree that it's going to be asphalt, but in a lot of areas, we need to build up. Bring the grade, you're not gonna use asphalt for that whole area. You're gonna use crushed material. So therefore, it will be topped with asphalt. But
crushed asphalt.
yeah,
Reclaimed
asphalt.
asphalt.
As far as dust and so forth. We crush all over the whole state. We're regulated by the state of Wisconsin. The crusher has water suppression systems. If we don't have a hydrant to use, we take water with our tankers, hook it to our fire trucks, which pump into the crusher. Plus, we put spraying devices on. We have not had one complaint in all the years that I've done crushing, which is about 25, 26. At all. Our equipment is all very, very late model equipment. Within a few years old. And we have regulation that we gotta follow by the state. Which is much more stringent than I would think land is, but at any rate, nonetheless, you know, that stuff is all covered. I more than welcome the entire board to come out when we're set up, if approved to crush, and take a look at the operation. I think you'd be quite impressed. The material will be used on our 2 sites. And therefore, which I've been trying to do this for a long time. And trying to get it done, so I'm within my time frame from our original commitment that we've made to the village. It's important to me to keep that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other citizen comments? No? No more? All right, we'll move on. Item 10, discussion of possible action regarding operators licenses for McDugout. So it looks like we have. Are all three of these for McDugout?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then there were a couple in your packet as well.
Yeah, and a couple of attachments from the chief. Have you all had an opportunity to review these? We've spare you from this one. I think we generally ask for your feedback, but you've provided extensive information as it is already here. So unless you feel a need to communicate any of this, no.
No.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for the license to serve fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquors as presented by McDugout.
You do that, your name, please.
Oh, yes, certainly. For Laura Kazmarek, Michelle Reinke, and Terry Fisher.
There's,
Yeah.
There's more. Laura, Michelle, Terry. That's all I have.
On your desk, there was some additional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Application.
All right, I will amend my. I will amend my motion to include Jennifer Sandin, Suzette Klinger. Yeah, there's a lot of beer being sold over there. Marilyn
Sorry.
Mackay. So that is all 5, I believe, or 6. And I'll check that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve all of the applications. I'm sure I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 applications. Is that correct? Correct. Any further discussion?
I have a problem with Jennifer Sandin. With what the chief has recovered. Or found out in a background check. And I also have a problem with Maryland. When you read hers. One question I have for the chief. Is you have the following disclosures or the applicant's February 2023 bartender's license. But then at the end, you said she had no traffic or criminal convictions since 2015.
Correct, since the Jefferson County case was the last one that I'm aware of. The February 2023 bartender's license application was denied by the board because of the extensive background. But in my memo, I just wanted to say that it's been nothing new since that application.
Okay. Yeah, those are the only 2 that I object to. The background checks are a little questionable.
Okay. Chief, your recommendation, oh, I'm sorry, your recommendation on these.
Oh,
I don't know if we want to.
No.
already submitted.
Yeah.
He's already submitted
Mhm.
his recommendation.
Okay.
What I suggest you consider doing is amending your motion
Mhm.
to only include for approval the individuals who
Yeah.
are not raised at this point, And then another motion can be made and a debate had with respect to each of the two remaining individuals. It is a discretionary privilege that the board can bestow on an individual. And sometimes in a situation where an individual has, shall we say, a checkered past, the passage of time should be taken into consideration in light of the nature of the previous offenses.
Mhm.
I would also like to just ask that we as a board, when and if we do get to those discussions, that we're sensitive to the applicant's privacy as well, and we don't need to air specifics in regards to these notes, please.
All right, well, in order to amend my motion, I'm not sure I can do that without naming exclusionary.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, so I amend my motion. I'm sorry, Terry, Jennifer, and the other one you had hesitation about was
Marilyn,
Marilyn. Okay. So my motion then will be to approve Laura Kazmarek, Michelle Reinecke, Terry Fisher,
And
and Suzette Klinger. And invite further discussion on the other two applicants.
Second that.
we have an amended motion and amended second, for usually original seconder.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to
There's
point
no public
out,
comments, yep.
last page on Merrill and Monty's.
We're gonna get to them next.
we're just doing these first.
We're just doing the easy ones first, before. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries, and then I would ask, yep, for a new motion for each additional applicant individually.
Okay, well, I would like to make a motion to approve Jennifer Sandin for the application to serve fermented malt beverages. And discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on this applicant. So if you'll see the memo provided by Chief Bell. It's a single page memo.
Here are your concerns.
I'm not comfortable with approving it.
I would concur.
I would recommend that reasons be added to positions indicated so that we do have a record.
So I concur because I feel that, given the prior history, documented history. Repeated, incidents, some recently. And they are alcohol related, so I don't know that this is an environment that we need to encourage. Any more time around that atmosphere.
I concur.
My feelings exactly.
Well, the motion is to approve, so we'll have to vote on that, correct?
Do you have any other feedback? No, nothing for this one, Don? Okay. So we have a motion to approve, and a second. All those in favor?
Hey,
Say aye if you're in favor. Nays?
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. Application will not be approved.
I will take the same tact then for making a motion to approve the application for license to serve fermented malt beverages under the name of Marilyn Mahai. If I'm saying that correctly?
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I have the same feeling about this one. Even since, with these being very recent from 2023.
The last one for her is in 2015, actually. Yeah.
There's a 2003 and then a 2015.
Yeah.
Okay. That is not alcohol related.
No, and there's certainly no shortage of items to review here. However, they are mostly pretty dated. There appears to be,
Well, you do have the last item on the first page. Alcohol related.
No, that's in
Yeah,
regard to
from-
the previous one.
yeah, from 2001, you mean, right? Fond du Lac County. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
You also have, 2008.
See, I'm missing this.
The 3-page.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
appears,
there it is.
there appears to be at least in. I'm not a lawyer and don't even play one on TV, but there appears to be, a history or demonstration of some rehabilitation here or
Yeah.
some better choices being made, over the last 9 years.
And the last intoxicated was 2008.
Right, but if you look at item number 2. What the chief wrote.
Yep. Yep.
But usually as a habitual offender, they're gonna keep going, they're not gonna stop and go almost 15 years without anything.
I would be willing to approve this one.
Yeah, me too.
I agree.
Yes, what sums it up for me, along with what Tina said, is what the keys are in here for its last no. Yeah. He's been a productive citizen, if that's a way to state it, for the last 9+ years.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to approve the license for. I'm gonna butcher the two, Marilyn Mahai. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye, or nay.
Motion carries. Item number 11, discussion and possible action on a temporary crushing permit for land and stone products. So this is our good buddy Nate, right? Or Paul tonight, sorry.
Let the record show I took great offense to that.
So noted.
We're back, same thing we were here for in May. We're looking to get another temporary crushing permit to crush at the Callaway property. We have our water truck at Lannon that's roadworthy and able to go over there and take care of any dust issues. And yeah,
Are they gonna stockpile on site or are you gonna truck it out?
it'll be stockpiled and then trucked out at some point.
Okay.
Did Hector or Ben, did you have any comments about this item?
Taking place in a quarry.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we approve the rock crushing permit for land and stone products at the Holly Quarry.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, discussion and action on snow removal contract with Snow Patrol. Jerry, I believe this is you.
Yeah, this is the same party that did it for us last year. And they've kept the same price, no increase in price. And best I can tell, it was satisfactory. I talked to Brenda about their billing procedures and that was acceptable. So I'm making a motion that we accept Snow Patrol for the 24-25 contract. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Just, yeah, oh, go ahead.
No, you,
I had actually two questions in regards to the gentleman's question, Jerry. Are they able to plow down Main Street closer to the curb?
It's not done.
No, it's Waukesha County and they're trying to sell a story there. They're responsible from curb to curb. So they can say fog line, there's no such thing as fog line in the laws, it's curb to curb. And for years, we've had problems with Main Street because there's really no place to go with the snow. Some years past, when we had big snowstorms, they actually did come and remove it with a loader and trucks. But it's Waukesha County.
Okay, the other question I have is, the certificate of insurance. That they said in here, it would be an umbrella and additional insured. Did you get a copy of that certificate of insurance?
Brenda, do we have that in file from last year?
Probably from last year, we'll probably get a new one.
Yeah, it should be updated.
They could have changed companies or something.
Well, it's gonna change the dates on the certificate of insurance too. That's all my questions.
Yes, sir.
I have more of a comment than a question. I would strongly urge each of you who have connection with the village to find out who your county supervisor is. And call and follow up with an email asking for assistance in this regard. Because oftentimes when one calls to the county, the supervisor who is facing all kinds of pressure basically cannot give you satisfaction. But if more than 3 calls come in to a supervisor, that's a landslide of comments and complaints. And if it's not taken care of, it will freeze. And with global warming, they're saying that this area will experience wetter winters. They'll be warmer in some respect, but wetter. So I would urge you to call the supervisor and ask for assistance on the part of that individual.
Thank you, Hector. Yeah, I think there were some isolated complaints that I recall from last year and dealing with those with Mr. Nellis, but frankly, I think they were explainable and excusable. You know, they had to we had a couple of pretty big snow events. Yeah, and they had to put snow somewhere. And so, yes, there's gonna be some issues with that, but with any service like this, I think what people fail to realize is that it takes time for these companies to get used to our community as well and kind of learn the community and all the good places and the ways to plow this stuff and where to store the snow. So I think with, if we can maintain a good relationship with the same vendor year after year, I think that's only going to help increase the level of service, hopefully.
And it's been my experience over the years that you always have problems.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go away.
Yeah.
Landing in this winter.
Right. Okay, so we have motion and second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Spend some big money.
Item 13, discussion of possible action on approval of trick or treat times for the village of Lannon. Candy buy.
Light industrial, quick shows up.
Last year, we talked about making the trick or treat align a little bit more closely with Sussex, so I looked up Sussex, they always do theirs last Sunday. This year it's Sunday, October 26th, from 6 to 8 p.m. I believe we've traditionally done it like from 2 to 4.
Early,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, because we do, right down, we do a parade, and then the kids go right to trick or treat. Any thoughts on if we should change our times at all?
I thought we were trying to switch it over to Saturday.
The 26th is a Saturday.
Okay.
Oh, I said Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Right.
That's
I gotta look at my calendar because I wrote this down wrong then.
Whispering Ridge is
Saturday, the
Saturday,
26th.
What did I say, 4 to 6 or something? If I'm not mistaken. On what day?
Saturdays?
Looking at it.
Trying to see if your mic is on.
No, it's not. Whispering Ridge condos and states, and I think north is 4 to 6. On, that Saturday, the 26th.
Okay, yeah, it's Saturday, 26th. I misspoke.
Oh, kind of why we usually get it earlier, was because it's the 6 o'clock, the end of October.
Daylight, yeah, doesn't change until
It's,
November, right?
it's getting dark already now.
That's why ours rather have it in the dark. That's all I'm saying.
Right, but you're mostly on private. roads.
Yeah.
You've got kids on me.
No, I get that. You've got the parade and then you've got whatever happens over here, right?
Mhm.
So,
I would like to see it during daylight hours to protect our kids and have to give our police department less headaches to deal with. Because, Keith was on when we got her new truck for 2 female officers. Showed the truck off before the chief got to. But it's a good community relations builder, I believe, when it's during the day. Landon Estates usually has theirs the weekend before. It's also daylight. And I kind of would like to see the kids get the most opportunity when I was a kid. I wanted to get them.
that night when we were kids.
Yeah, so if we did Saturday, the 26th from 2 to 4, we could do the parade, we could do the party, the official trick or treat for Lannon. And then if the kids wanted to go on, they could do the 4 to 6 in the neighborhoods. Is everybody good with that? Does Overstone do one, Patrick?
Maybe this will be my third Halloween and I eat all the candy. Because I literally get 0 trigger.
And
So don't you come over this year trying to get some of my candy.
in 20 years on East End of Main Street, I've seen trick or treat.
Oh, we get a lot of kids.
Even from Rock Point.
Yeah.
People like you.
Yeah, I don't.
I get close to 200.
Wow, do you really? Wow.
I do. I get close to 200.
What? Is there? What? Oh, we get.
You're kind of isolated all the way down
Yeah.
past the quarry center.
No.
I
And
just
I leave
Lake
town and
Street
turn
and I
all the
get-
lights off.
I get 200. Easy.
We get a lot of kids. I go for a lot of kids.
Me do too.
All right, well, I will make a motion to approve the official trick or treating for the Village of Lannon for the year of 2024 to be 2 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, the 26th of October.
I will second.
We have a motion, a second, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I think Liz was asking about that too. So let's make sure we let her know.
Yeah, I'll text you.
All right, item number 14. Discussion of possible action regarding the award of contract 1-2024 for the Good Hope Road water main installation. So I think in your packets, you should have all had a letter from Strand regarding this item. Ben, did you want to run through that or?
Real basically, the project attracted a lot of responsive bidders, 7 bids altogether. The low bid was $878,164.19 by Miller Pipeline. The next 5 bids were all within 12% of each other, ranging from basically 1.09 million up to 1.22 million. Interestingly, Vinton, who did the big water main expansion project a couple of years ago, was the high bidder at 1.36 million. The purpose for the project is to use up the remainder of the USDA contingency funds, which are 100% grant funds. However, the project is not conducive to a lot of change orders once the bid award is made. That's by and large the maximum price that USDA is willing to pay for this project. All funds need to be paid out by April 30th, 2025. Therefore, a lot of risk is put on the contractor with the specifications on this project, specifically rock removal. Of course, we provided geotechnical reports, but the extent of rock removal, the extent of pavement restoration, the type of pavement restoration based on what time of year they complete the work are all variables that, to try to put it concisely, we just said that a lot of that stuff is incidental to the pipe cost. We're not measuring rock by ton or by cubic yard, it's per linear foot of pipe. Basically giving the village the flexibility to adjust contract prices by just taking out length of pipe or whatever. All the other potential things that could be problematic for the contractor are, as I said, kind of at the risk with that. So expected because of that, quite a bit of variability in the bid results. Nonetheless, with bidders 2 through 5, we're pretty pleased that they were all fairly close together. The low bidder, the apparent low bidder here is Miller Pipeline. Their qualifications were hopefully in the packets.
I didn't get it up.
Okay, so at least Jerry and Patrick are familiar with their qualifications. I'll let you guys comment on that, but in a nutshell, they do not have any mainline water main projects on the resume in the state of Wisconsin. Strand has worked with them on a couple of projects in Indiana. They've done a couple of water service lateral projects for public water utilities in Wisconsin. They are primarily, Miller Pipeline is known for a lot of gas. Thank you. So it appears that they are attempting to break into this market. And so Jerry and Patrick have reviewed the qualifications. I would suggest that you guys provide your opinions and comments on that. Page 2 of the letter is the bid tabulation. So you can see this was a unit price bid, and you can see the dollar values for the various bid items. I want to call your attention to the first 3 line items in there. 1, 2, and 3 are all the main line water main. And you can see that they are significantly less than all the other bidders on those 3 items specifically. There's a couple other items in there that they're low on. There are a couple others that they are high on. But by and large, it's these first 3 items that really made the price difference. I also want to point out line item number 14 you can see is rock excavation per linear foot. And there is a lot of rock on this project. We've assumed rock for 100% of the length of project. Miller is the only one out of two that basically put a specific dollar value to the rock removal line item. What that means is that the other bidders included that just in their pipe installation items 1 through 3. So to get a fair comparison of Miller's first 3 line items compared to the rest, you would want to add the $26.13. So really they're in a range of about $175 a foot per pipe, compared to 173 up to 265 for everybody else. Having a little bit of concerns that Miller was 19% lower than the second bidder. We held Dave Strand and Patrick held a phone conference the day after bids with Miller to talk through a couple of key project requirements. Just kind of blatantly asking them, did they miss something, etc. They're aware of the rock removal. They plan to remove rock with a large track machine with a breaker on it. They're planning for a 2-month construction period. They are targeting starting on October 1st. They're aware of USDA's BABA, or Buy America, Build America requirements, which basically takes American iron and steel requirements and makes it applicable to all materials on the project. Trying to think of a couple other key things from that meeting. Basically, they're also aware of the time of year versus the pavement restoration requirements. So ideally, this is done at a time of the year when asphalt plants are open. So we're hoping for either a late start to winter or an early spring. I didn't hear from all of the bidders during the bidding timeframe, but probably 3 out of the 7 that there were probably 5 that contacted me. 3 out of those 5 indicated that they would plan a February start and an April finish, so that they could finish right when the plants are first opening in the spring. Miller's strategy is to start immediately and try to finish by the end of November, in hopes that asphalt plant stays open until the end of November. They're fully aware that the way the specs are written is that if the asphalt plants are closed when they want to do the pavement restoration, at their own cost, they have to do concrete for the trench patch. Now, I want to point out to everybody that this section of Good Hope Road is a local Village of Lannon jurisdiction street. It's not part of the county highway. We are not doing a full width mill and overlay like we did on other portions of the project. You'll recall that the village has secured a grant for the full reconstruct of this portion of Good Hope Road in federal fiscal year 2027-28. I quite frankly don't remember what that means. I think that means it starts in September of 27. So the intent is that this trench patch lasts about 3 years, is the short of it. Having a concrete trench patch in an asphalt road is not ideal. I think for 3 years until the full reconstruct, it's not worth the extra cost of what we would normally do, which is require the contractor to come back in the spring, take out the concrete, put asphalt back. At any rate, they were aware of those requirements. The other thing that we thought might be a significant cost difference is the backfill material. They're planning on trucking in all new backfill material. There is a small provision in the spec that if the native material that they excavate meets the gradation requirements identified in the spec, that they can use that, but their plan is to use new aggregate material. So with that, we felt that they know what they're getting into. Miller as company appears to have a strong
daddy.
What's that?
They got a big daddy.
Yeah, yeah, so, that's, I feel like. I feel comfortable that they know what they're getting into. And beyond that, Gary and Patrick, you want to discuss qualifications further?
Well, we looked into them, but they're owned by a very large company, multi-billion, and they specialize in pipelines. And particularly gas pipelines, which are much more technical to put in the ground than water. And they have a good reputation. They do work all throughout the United States. So I don't have any problem with them disappearing. One question I have been with the reduced lineal footage price, are we gonna be able to add more lineal foot for what you had estimated?
We will not be able to, and that's a stipulation of USDA.
Okay.
So. What our plan was with this bid. Going back several months, was that Strand would design more length of water main than what's required. So that by the time we got to this point where we're awarding the contract, we knew exactly how much contingency money was left. And that we would reduce the scope of the water main immediately concurrent with award. To have a project that matched the remaining contingency balance. So last week we had a phone conference with USDA. USDA acknowledged that the village has a little bit of flexibility. And that the low bid was within, let's say, $70,000 to $100,000 of what the remaining contingency was. What USDA suggested is that rather than mess around with a change order to reduce scope immediately, to award the full amount and then just not claim reimbursement for another 70,000 somewhere else. The reason why this, in my opinion, is an acceptable strategy is if there is an interconnect with Sussex, which is seeming more and more likely, the water main's got to keep going on down Good Hope Road eventually. So presumably as soon as next year, there'll be another project to finish out the second half of Good Hope Road. So USDA also told us that they're under, the state USDA office told us they're under a lot of pressure from federal USDA office to return any unused funds because this year they've had several projects that have come in over estimate. So USDA basically put us on the clock. 30 days from, I don't know, September 4th-ish, 6th, no, be about 4th. At any rate, so they gave us 30 days to award this, submit a draw request for anything else. And at the end of that 30 days, they're gonna call that the final accounting and any unused funds will go back. And so I asked them explicitly, to say it in different terms, whatever award amount this is, we cannot change order in more project. We could only go down. I said, yes, that's correct. Now they are required with this award, they're required to hold a 5% contingency, so to speak, which the value on that would be, $45,000 plus or minus on this project. So if everything goes according to plan and there's no construction change orders, the village would be returning $45,000 next spring. If things don't go according to plan, the project can only absorb $45,000 worth of change orders. Otherwise, you're gonna have to start taking the pipe out.
Okay.
That was way more answer than your question required.
Well, that's good though.
That's good.
I mean, we've got 45,000 yet for contingency, so.
Right.
And we've already considered the rock.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask you, Hector, if you wouldn't mind, just walking the board through the process, of this type of bid. How we are obligated to consider these bids and what pros, cons, ramifications might there be for possibly choosing an alternate other than the lowest bid.
Right. The Wisconsin law is set forth in the Wisconsin statutes. And any project in excess of $25,000 has to be awarded. That's capital project has to be awarded on the basis of the lowest qualified bidder. Here we have a clear situation where there is a real difference of 19% between the low bidder and the next higher bidder. There isn't a whole lot of case law with regards to what constitutes a qualified bidder. However, in my experience, the safe harbor area for communities to turn down bidders, even though they're the low bidder, is a history of past problems. Either experienced directly by the community or vicariously by learning it from other communities. And it is something that has to be documented. In this particular situation, having spoken with Ben this afternoon, I am of the opinion that the fact that Miller does not have any prior projects involving the specific installation, water installation that we have, that is offset by two factors. Number one, they do have a history of installing gas lines, which from a technical installation standpoint are more demanding. And secondly, there have not been any complaints that we're aware of, and Strand being a national company has interacted with them. And in those situations, the outcome has been positive. So to summarize, in the absence of a history of problems that have been reported and verified, it would be reasonable to assume that given the information you've received about Miller, that they are a qualified low bidder.
And you had a question as well?
Yes, two comments. One, after I finish my comments, I would ask Ben to describe for the board and the audience the territory that's going to be involved in this particular contract. And secondly, I have been going back and forth with the Miller contract administrator. And she sent me the insurance information, which on a preliminary basis seemed positive. I was missing some information from them, which they sent today. So if you move to approve this contract, you should make that motion subject to final review of the insurance documentation provided to legal counsel.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest. Does anyone have questions?
Topsoil sealed fertilizer, hydraulic seeding and watering at $3,000 is like by far the lowest on this list. And we've had so many problems with trying to get the replacement. I know it's less residential through there and more commercial, but if you've got 45,000, I suppose that's enough to cover one item, but what if there's multiple things that are going south on their finishing? Could you, I suppose you can't change this bid sheet at this point, but I'm thinking of adding a contingency. You know, like what if we added a contingency line, because there's such a vast difference between where they're at and the next closest. That, you know, 45,000 doesn't seem like a lot. What do you think, Ben? You think it's okay?
I think you're off by a comma place, so it's They're
Well, they got-
at $3,117. The second lowest bidder was at $4,750. So
Yeah.
we're off by about $1,600.
I guess maybe what I'm saying is I know how much it took to,
Yeah.
in dollars to, even after the initial. Seeding and watering was done, then how much more we ended up spending during the water project to make that right, so.
Yep, so a couple of comments in that regard, and I'll mash my answer up with Hector's request to describe the project extents here. The project is starting just west of Main Street on Good Hope, on the north side of the road, about 100 feet down Good Hope Road. There's a hydrant, that's the last hydrant on the line. It's picking up approximately there, it's going past the foundry, past the businesses, past the bud line. Past the entrance to the Collie Farm and stopping right about at CTW's property. So the properties involved, the only residences involved in this project are on the south side of the road, right here at the project start, close to Main Street. I believe there's 3 or 4 residential properties. So this item is there's a lot less turf restoration required. Actually, it's mostly where these laterals are going are in paved areas and business parking lots, etc. So there's more pavement restoration. That's one. For 2, we did address a couple of Don's suggestions for improvement after the last project. We remembered and incorporated in here. So that's hydro seeding, none of the net erosion mat stuff, and then screened topsoil. Are a couple things that are expected to help. And quite frankly, the attempts at restoration for all the residences, not only was the majority, a lot of people were, the majority of the properties involved were impacted with that turf restoration. Nearly all attempts were done during, hot, dry weather that were somewhat out of our control. So, as difficult as that has been for residents and still unsatisfactory to residents also, we feel like there's a lot fewer properties impacted by that. As far as adding a contingency, I would respectfully disagree in that would reward bidders for, intentionally trying to do a bait and switch comes to mind, but that's not right the term. You intentionally lowball something and try to scrape and claw for everything versus following the
Yeah.
spec requirements. So I don't want to.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Which definition of topsoil did you use? Same one as Custer Lane?
No, so on Custer, we didn't have screen. On this one, we added screen topsoil.
We volunteered you to go inspect the.
Oh, you remember what the.
Yes, I remember. Trust me, how could I forget?
Yeah. Just so we don't use the same description.
Different description.
Thanks.
Ben, is this company going to make the hookup to these businesses?
They will
Or
only
they're
be,
just laying the line down the road?
they're laying the line down the road and the public side of the lateral. So it'll go, we're putting at the property lines, everyone will get a little
Stop box, curb stop.
valve box, curb stop, whatever. They're going that far.
Okay, so then they would have to hire somebody to make the hookup.
The individual property owners will.
Okay, now, with that in mind, and it going past the Collie Farm, how is this gonna impact? Is this gonna taxi the water system?
I'm gonna say no, I forget the property count, it's about 17 properties that are being added. I'm not real familiar with how much water the FW Foundry uses, but they would presumably be the largest user.
Are they gonna be hooked up or are they gonna keep their own well?
They are gonna be hooked up, they've been notified that if they wanna keep their well for production purposes, they can, but they need to submit a conditional use permit. so I haven't heard from them. I will say that I don't believe it's going to tax the water system unless the foundry has some really high water use that they intend on not keeping their private well for. Similarly, Lakeshore Burial Vault, we know they use a lot of water. We're expecting that they will be applying for a conditional use permit to keep their well for the mixing of the concrete, whatever that they do want to say. So outside of that, I think the water use is going to be fairly routine, similar to seeing 17 more customers of any other variety. I think that it's going to be imperative to complete the connection to Sussex. And once the village is connected to Sussex, kind of have the available, all the capacity that's in the Sussex system will be available to land. Land won't have the right to use all of that, but it's certainly what Sussex can provide is adequate for. We've looked at a like full build out scenario for the village.
So we put all of them on and we have Sewall starting to build.
Mhm.
Now, I guess, in the end, my big question is. Probably going back to Willis Taxi, can our 2 wells handle this?
So far, yes.
Okay.
It's with the caveat that Land and Estates keeps their leaks under control. Yes, our 2 wells can handle it. But that's also. It's a delicate balance in the sense that. Emergency protocols have to be up to date all the time, and you have to be comfortable with them. And there's a big cost to increase capacity in the system. The most cost-effective way is connecting to Sussex, but nonetheless, it's a big cost. And along with that cost, you want as many users as possible to help spread that cost across. So, in the interim, I personally feel comfortable that Lannon has capacity to keep adding, with the caveat that Landon is also actively working on adding capacity.
From Sussex.
Yeah.
And Sussex is the one that has, if I remember correctly, and I'm not sure I'm gonna word this right, but they have more capacity than usage.
Correct, yep.
Right?
You worded that correctly.
Okay, so that's why they are asking. Is it the DNR that's asking them to fill
No,
that void?
it's Sussex, and to get just one level deeper into it, they're projecting their growth. And they're seeing that they will need more capacity. But it's kind of like, you know, if they're running low on eggs, you can't just go to the grocery store and buy 2 more, you gotta buy a whole dozen. That's kind of like when they go to, they're gonna drill a new well, and when they drill that new well. It's just gonna provide a lot more water than that they need, and they're looking to sell some of that capacity to Lannon. As a way of kind of offsetting their costs, instead of Lannon and Sussex buying our own dozen eggs, we can pitch in together and just buy 1.
I think it's a good idea.
Odd analogy.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So couple pieces I'll add, if you'll recall. When we updated our mandatory connection ordinance, it's 6 months from the time of availability. So just a reminder, that's. By ordinance, that's what we have on the books. Also, what are we planning on doing a program for the private property connections similar to what we did with the water expansion project?
I believe I have the following thoughts on that. The majority of the customers are commercial. And for the program that was done previously, the contract was specifically for residential properties. And Mid-City extended the same pricing to any commercial properties that wanted to participate, so it worked out very nicely. For commercial properties that didn't want to participate in quote unquote the program, they still were eligible to receive reimbursement up to, it was $12,000 if you did all the scope. And they could use their own contractor. I think it would be more appropriate on this project to develop something similar where rather than the village leading the contract for 17 properties, because on the whole, it would be a lot of extra administration for 17 properties, that the village make discuss with the quarry committee about using the Waukesha Community Foundation grant funds to do some type of dollar value reimbursement similar to what was done for commercial properties and that's what we're.
There was, can't remember how that was worded, Patrick, that there was some maximum to private connections tied to the construction cost of goods.
I think you're referring to the escalator for the RCA amount. There's an annual adjustment to the RCA figure that we set a baseline when we established that RCA. And then we, by ordinance, I believe, put in the language that would indicate how that would get adjusted annually to calculate that year's cost for a connection. And that's based on like a construction price index.
Correct.
I think that rather than the
That
consumer
would
price
cover
index.
the residential users.
That's their, so that connection fee is their buy-in to the common infrastructure and system. That's their buy-in to their portion of the wells, future interconnections, storage, et cetera.
Yeah, it does not cover any of the private plumbing
Right,
costs.
right. The quarry funds that's held through their administered, technically it's Waukesha County Community Foundation. That's really the only funding source that's available to private property.
Hector.
I would recommend that since the agenda item is the discussion and possible action regarding the approval of this contract, that the board postpone a discussion about contributions and costs to another agenda day. Because there are things that have to be revisited in terms of the intent of that fund. However, I think the board should know that my recommendation is to try to avoid the enforcement problems that we run into, and that we take a strict position so that anyone that failed to meet the deadline with the initial installation be treated in a similar fashion as anybody coming on board with this extension.
Yeah, a good reminder that of what the agenda item is here, Hector, and we were getting kind of off into the weeds there, so to speak.
So on that note, do you want me to make a motion?
Yeah, I would entertain the motion. I will just, I will make a comment that as a business owner myself, you know, I do think that it's a shame we can't, doesn't appear that we're going to be able to work with a local company. This is the big corporate conglomerate kind of deal, but you know, we've had a good relationship with Mid-City. They've been good partners, good operators for our system. But I feel like our hands are kind of tied here.
If it was closer, but it's 19%, as Hector pointed out, that's a lot of money to walk away from. I don't disagree with you, Mid-Cities has been a great partner. So I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion regarding the Good Hope Road Water Main Extension Contract 1-2024 for the Village of Lannon Wisconsin to accept the low bid of $878,164.19 as presented by Miller Pipeline, Central Region, subject to the final review of insurance with legal counsel.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second, any other discussion, Ben?
And subject to USDA concurrence of the award.
Okay, I amend my motion to include USDA concurrence with the use of the loan.
I'll second that.
Amended second.
We have amended motion and amended second, any other discussion?
Has anybody checked in to see if there's any legal action with this company? As far as project issues?
I have no.
We did not check into that. And we were not asked to do that.
Jerry, did you, through any of your vetting process?
No,
Welcome to that.
when I looked at KNS, I figured if their pockets are deep enough, then I'm not too worried about them.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, discussion and consideration of a recommendation from the legislative committee to amend the current ordinance sections 18-136 and 18-140, establishing a limited crushing permit LCP and possible enactment of the proposed amendment. For those of you who were not here early enough to catch the the legislative committee, the debate and discussion regarding a possible ordinance change. We did cover a lot of ground. Yeah, right. There were some very valid arguments or reasons, rationale brought up to be taken into consideration and to dissuade that action. I think the general goal, I believe it seems from the legislative committee, was to try to find a middle ground or some way to accommodate some special needs without putting the village at significant adverse effects. We came up with a lot of notes and suggestions to some changes to the red line version provided by Hector. I think ultimately what we're going to be looking for here tonight is a tabling of the item for the next meeting to hopefully be able to discuss a revised proposal at the board level, but Hector, if you want to go into more details regarding that at this time, I would welcome that, or we can keep moving forward.
The issues as I saw them, which the legislative committee deliberated about, were policy points, which in the context of a cleared up draft might be better carried out by the entire board. And so I attempted to take extensive notes. I will be preparing a revised draft for the board to consider a special type of permit to allow limited crushing in non-quarrying sites.
All right, so I make a motion to table item number 15.
I'll second that. We have a motion, a second to table item 15. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries the table 6-15. Item 16. Discussion of possible action on steps that the village can take to inform the citizens of Landon about the upcoming public safety referendum. I think we've touched on this many times. I did, ask John from Ellers, if he had completed his calculations, so that we could have a table, if you will, as an exhibit, to demonstrate the impact to residents. Until we get that, then I think we did kind of vet out in previous meetings that we felt, we'll put it on the website. We'll use the civic alert system, we'll use social media. And we talked about possibly doing a postcard mailer. And then, yep. Yeah. Well, that could be where it gets stuck in all the junk
Yeah, that's what I'm.
coupon rug you get in the mailbox. Yeah. Yeah. So those are some things we talked about. We talked about if we were going to have like a public information session in previous discussions, we thought that it would be best to do that closer to the election time, rather than making a big push to get out there and do that right away. So I do still intend to get together with Beth Foy or try to reach out to her. We've used her in the past for some stuff for the water system expansion. They were a subcontractor of Strands that does public relations type stuff. They know us, they know our issues here, so I think they probably help us develop a web presence that will help us communicate what we're trying to do here.
Were we successful in submitting the language to get it on the ballot?
The language has been submitted to the county and it's on there, right?
But yes, it is.
Okay.
We got the ballot approval.
Oh, we got it.
It was approved by the Department of Revenue ultimately.
With the changes that we had.
Yeah.
made. Yep, so it'll be on there. Yes, sir.
I have another community that's going into a referendum also, and I was asked the question, what kind of information can be put out there? And I just basically said, just the facts, only the facts, the plain fact, the Joe Friday act.
Yes, ma'am.
Just.
However, there was further discussion at this other meeting about the trustees. What could they do personally? And to the extent that the trustees were willing to do it, someone suggested taking a map of the community and establishing area captains who would be the trustees. And they would go out and knock on doors to talk to people, to be informed about issues in the community. And also not to advocate for something, but rather to explain to the constituents why that individual trustee took the position on going ahead on the referendum. And that way, it would be a factual statement, and you can add to it the things that you took into consideration. So that was a suggestion that came up recently. It does involve legwork, but it can be productive in terms of getting to know and meet citizens of the community.
Hector, I thought there was something that we can't advocate for it as the board. We can inform, but
Yes,
would that be advocating?
I don't believe so. If you approach people and you say, I am knocking on doors to let you know, number one, that there's a referendum that's coming up. And I personally believe that it's an important one. Let me explain what the referendum is and explain to you why I voted in favor of putting this question to you. And so you limit it to just what you did, what your thinking process was.
Okay,
I like it.
I nominate the village president.
Gotta cover over stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need any action on this, more of an informative, item there.
Right, had the discussion.
That's item 17, discussion of possible action on payment of the bills.
I make a motion that we pay the bills as presented by Brenda.
We have a motion, a second to approve. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to pay the bills as presented by the clerk. Item 18, engineers report.
Nothing further to report.
Item 19, attorney's report.
Nothing additional to provide.
Item 20, president's report. Don brought up the awareness walk this weekend. I unfortunately will not be at this one, but I encourage folks to attend. It is a great event. It seems to be gaining some traction and some momentum, so hopefully it turns out to be another good year for that this year. Also, I am going to have Fire Chief Pulvermacher come and present at next month's meeting on the 14th. But he did want me to share that there are a couple of upcoming open houses at a few of the fire stations in the falls, if anybody is interested. The first one is going to be on September 14th at the firehouse on Silver Spring, number 97, and that open house will be from 9 to noon. And then there will be another one at Firehouse 98, which is number 1 up here, actually, at Menominee and Maine on 10/12. Same hours of 9 to 12. Those are 2 open houses available. I will post that information on my Facebook page as well, and Brenda, maybe you can share those also. Other than that, I think that's it.
Sorry.
Item 21, may convene into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985 sub 1 sub G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who's rendered oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved in with respect to 1, the failure of certain properties connected to available municipal water service and village planning by the commencement of enforcement actions, seeking the imposition of fines and or injunctions compelling their connection, and 2, the status of potential litigation against land in the states with respect to its pending water bill balance. So we'll do a roll call vote to enter into closed session.
I so move.
We have a second?
Sure.
Motion and second to go into closed session. Roll call vote.
Blake,
Yes.
Delatola, Roby,
Yeah.
Newman,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Moore, yeah, Grenier,
Yes.
Summers.
Yes.
Okay. We will enter into closed session after a brief recess.
Oh my God.